your team has honestly made it as easy as possible for somebody with no experience, even if they don't know how to craft a story, doesn't matter. Literally just sit for like a 1 hour Zoom call with your team and you just rant and blabber on, and then eventually your team will collect all the pieces and be able to craft something out of that.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal from OPR, and today we have with us Emil, and who's from First Principles. And Emil is here to share his experience working with people. Okay, so Emil, maybe you can share with us a little bit about what you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead a team of study skills experts, and we help students between the ages of 9 to 16 years old really transform them into confident and independent learners who can really be self-directed learners and without having to rely on tuition. Oh, I think Grow PR was really from recommendation from a friend, I believe, who was also an entrepreneur himself. I can't quite remember who it was because I think it's not just like one person that recommended. I think a bunch of them recommended. And also probably at some point we maybe did some Google search due diligence, and you guys are definitely one of the leading ones for especially small medium enterprises, startups and all here in Singapore. So yeah, naturally we just gravitated towards that.
Okay,
That's a great question. So the big reason why we really wanted to work on PR in public relations is really the fact that what we do is not the typical traditional tuition, which most parents might be very familiar with. And what we are specializing in is really a personalized, bespoke, high touch point, high performance mentoring program. And whenever it's something more niche, something more hyper personalized like this, the reason why we do it is very important, right? Our mentoring philosophy, our business values, our team's philosophy and principles, these are all very important. And in order to communicate these effectively, we need to educate people who might not be familiar, parents who might not be familiar with this concept. And public relations is a fantastic way to do that because it puts us in front of millions of eyeballs, right? When we get featured, and we have been featured on like Channel News Asia and radio stations. So it's not just like print media, right? But also radio stations and stuff like that. So I think that was really the objective of why we wanted to do it, is to get our story out essentially.
and you mentioned that you had a lot of things going on the marketing up there.
Fantastic question. So what I really wanted from PR was very different from, let's just say, social media marketing, because social media marketing at the end of the day doesn't come from some sort of establishment. And when it's a new concept, when it's something that is niche or maybe something that is, I would say, a little bit more unfamiliar, generally the audience, they are looking for something like social proof, right? To show that this thing has been tested, that it can be trusted, that some reputable organization did some sort of due diligence before inviting us to a radio station and interview us for an hour, right? So when we do social media marketing, you can't really get that because everybody knows you could film it in your bedroom with just a camera, right, with just a smartphone. But when you're being invited to MediaCorp, when you are interviewed by a professional journalist who has done their due diligence, then that adds an additional layer of social proofing, which is very helpful in showing the audience that, at the very least, of course, not everything you read on the news is 100% true, but at the very least, it shows that there is an additional layer of due diligence that was done in order for us to get to that level. And I think especially for startups and small medium enterprises who the brand hasn't really been very well tested, I think that all the more reason why we wanted to do that. One of the biggest challenges that I face, and I think a lot of founders, right, face, especially in the early stages of the startup, is that the vision, the philosophy, and the beliefs of the founder is very important. Because especially at the beginning, a lot of the parents, I can say, when they heavily invest into a premium bespoke mentoring program like this, a lot of it is really, I would say, a vote of confidence in our coaching philosophy, in our beliefs, in our principles. And as a founder, I end up having to be caught between communicating that versus building the company, right? So if without the help of a professional PR agency, like from your team, then I found myself constantly in a position where there's so much I want to tell, so much I want to share. But if I put my attention into that, reaching out to publications or putting a story out there, I end up neglecting the building of the service, the product, which again is very important, right? Because that's where we really transform the lives and impact our students and the families who have put all that faith and confidence in us. So because of that, I always end up gravitating back towards just focusing on building the product and the services, and then in a sense neglecting the side of sharing the story with the public. So I think the biggest challenge was really finding that balance, and we only have 24 hours a day, right? And as much as you can really balance, time management and stuff, you still only have 24 hours. So having a PR agency come in really solved that big logistical challenge where I don't have to choose between building the team, building the product, building the service, or sharing the story. I can do both essentially.
What was
Right, that's a great question. So I think doing it DIY versus having your team help us, the biggest difference is really finding the right narrative, the right angle. Because as a founder also, probably I have like 1,001 stories that I want to tell, but not necessarily everybody wants to hear every one of those 1,000 grandfather stories, right? But probably there'll be those that really resonate with what the audience are looking for. And unless I'm working in the PR industry, I would probably have some sort of, especially these days with social media, probably live in some sort of an echo chamber of my own. I think maybe parents want to hear this thing, but actually the conversations that they are having out there is different, right? The journalists will know very well, the PR, your team will know very well what parents are really looking to hear, what kind of a thought leadership or what kind of an opinion they want a second opinion on. And when we did it on our own, it was just very one-sided. We put out what we thought people wanted to hear, and there was really no way for us to really analyze and get feedback on whether this was relevant to what people are looking for. So we're really glad that when your team came in, I think the biggest difference was that I think probably during even like the first meeting, I probably pitched maybe like 5 different angles, and very quickly your team was able to tell me, okay, out of these 5, probably these 2 wouldn't really work very well, just basically based on past experience. But instead, these 3 might work very well. So can we zone in and be more focused and streamline it to just these 3 angles? Because that's what parents really need answers on. They need some clarity on, and those are the ones that got picked up by the big news agencies like CNA and Money FM. I think like the radio stations like 95.8 FM and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think the difference is really on zoning in and focusing on what people want to hear. I think well, I mean, it's very hard to measure that, but I can definitely say that the one that we saw almost like an immediate return on investment was probably the Channel News Asia one. Well, firstly, because I think the audience, right, the kind of audience that tunes into Channel News Asia is
CNA 93, right? Radio station.
yes, yeah. So that's the one, and I think the kind that they tune into that is very aligned with the kind of families that tend to look for these things. Right, and I remember that just almost immediately after that segment aired, and I think we had like immediately 2 families just sign up and enroll for our program. Now I know it may not seem like a lot, right? But the thing is that because, like I've mentioned, we are a highly personalized. This is a bespoke, tailored mentoring program. So they're not mainstream. So parents do go through many rounds of interviews and tests to really determine if there's a good fit. So for there to eventually, within the span of just a few days or maybe even a week, I would say, for 2 families to actually be so aligned and so quickly and swiftly enroll into the program, and it is a premium program. So I would say as far as a return on investments go, just that 2 families right off, and that was probably like one of our first or maybe second campaigns that we did together. It already was a immediate like return on investment, like more than the investment of what we invested into your team's services. Yeah, we got it all back already. So I think that's like, and then everything from then on is just like cherry on top of the icing, right? Yeah.
And you actually didn't expect the PR campaign to bring in leads as well, right? Because you looked at it as more of like a credibility exercise.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of how we get our enrollment, it's really from word of mouth referrals from current families, and then they refer their friends or their relatives, or maybe something more targeted like social media ads. We don't really put money into like flashy influencer marketing or spamming our advertisements across like YouTube, Google, all sorts of channels, because we do believe that if we were to invest the revenue and we will invest it back into the company, it goes into R&D, it goes into our people, it goes into the program itself to really benefit the students that we work with. So when we engaged the PR services of your team, it was really for getting the story out. So we weren't really looking for anything like super tangible, measured in dollars and cents. That wasn't the initial objective. But we were really thrilled to see that within, I believe it was even like maybe within the first month of working together, we already got more than what we have put in there, just within the first month, yeah. I think in terms of what really moved the needle for me was that now when there are parents who are uncertain or maybe just confused about what is it that we actually offer, what is our story, what are our principles. In the past, we would probably have to type something lengthy or send them to like a website, which they may or may not click on it. But now it's much more, I would say, convincing that we can say, hey, we actually did a full segment on CNA 938 or maybe Money FM, or if you want to know about, or you could speak, there's the radio station, I think 958, right? And that's or in Mandarin. So we have it like in English and Mandarin. We can send it to them. They can watch at their own pace, and they can really listen to our answers to the questions that were posed by I would say a somewhat independent third party, which are the journalists or the interviewers, right? So I think that really moved the needle because it's remember, our objective at the beginning was always to educate, and now having something so simple that we can just set it over and have them watch at their own pace, I think that's really great. Yeah. I would say the biggest change would really be our mindset on how important public relations really is. And it's something that we did not really try before. But after having tried it, we realized the importance of it. And it's something that we will want to always continue working on, because public relations is not a short-term gain, right? It's long-term. You need to build up, cultivate that kind of a presence in the media. I would say that would be one of the biggest change. Perhaps another big change as far as like the business side goes, I think it would really be that now we, even after some of these campaigns, like we assume it has ended, but sometimes, we still have parents enrolling, and when we ask them, and this might be like 6 months later, they'll say, oh, actually I first heard about you guys on the radio. I was driving my kid to school and I heard you guys on the radio. And it was just sitting at the back of my mind. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I saw another article again about you guys. So I Googled you guys, and that's how I contacted you guys. So it shows that there's that sort of like a spill over long-term effect of things. So, and that's like half a year even after the campaign has ended. Yeah, so I thought that was quite interesting, because it really gave us a much longer term perspective on how to get good at public relations.
Against us.
Oh, it's a great question. So I think if there's anybody who's watching, who's thinking of working with, Growth PR, I think the biggest challenge, or I would say biggest question, right, they should really ask themselves is, why do they want to do PR? Because I would say, as if anything, right, even for mentoring and coaching, if they come in with the expectation that public relations is going to like immediately solve their sales problem or immediately show results, then don't, because that will just create a situation where it's hard to work with one another, right? Because there's no value alignment. But if they are, if the person who's watching, they know that they have a compelling story, or even if they don't know what exactly is a compelling story, but they know they have something there, and they need a team of experts who can help them to really sharpen and hone that narrative in a way that the public will be interested to learn more about, and basically take that initial first step. Because remember, right, like PR is a long-term game. So don't expect this to be like you do it today, tomorrow you see results. But it should be this is one step, but it's an important first step. Because if this step is not taken, you'll never achieve anything in PR, right? So coming with those expectations, but also understand that your team has honestly made it as easy as possible for somebody with no experience. Even if they don't know how to craft a story, it doesn't matter. Literally just sit for like a 1 hour Zoom call with your team, and you just rant and blabber on, and then eventually your team will collect all the pieces and be able to craft something out of that. So that's what I would say to those who are maybe sitting on the fence or haven't tried PR. Yeah, do it if you want something long-term for your brand and to educate the public on your mission and your values and your beliefs. I would say my favorite thing about working with your team was that it added practically zero logistical challenge or burden on me, right? Because the very reason why we put off PR on our own was because I needed more of my attention and focus to be on building the team, building the company, our products and services. So sharing of the story, not so much. So at first, I was hesitant that, what if we engage a PR agency and we still have to end up sharing these and doing the things, meaning like write the story, constantly go for meetings, constantly refining, then that's just basically adding more burden to me, right? But that wasn't the case at all. In fact, I think we probably only had like a 1 or 2 onboarding call, and then fill up like a simple quick questionnaire. And then from there, your team was able to very accurately identify what were the key angles that we should go for, key things that we need to share. And yeah, and then basically I just wait, couple of weeks. They'll come back and say, okay, these media are interested, which one do you think is suitable? And I just basically like pick and choose from there. So the whole process was very just minimal effort from my part, and I basically just wait for results to come in, and then I just pick what I feel suits best for the company.
Last question. Especially if there are parents who are watching me.
Wow, great question. So if anybody wants to know more about First Principles Education, our study habits transformation program for students, I think a simple Google search, First Principles Education, would come up. If not,
AI search also.
AI search or search my name, or I'm sure you're always on LinkedIn. I know you're always on LinkedIn, so this will likely show up somewhere on your LinkedIn, and I'm sure I'll be tagged in it somewhere. So just click on whatever she's tagging, and yeah, it's there.
Okay.